3 years had passed since the day the sky went dark. Earth looked very different now. Velthari towers rose from the centers of major cities, their crystal surfaces gleaming in the sunlight. Human workers moved in long lines toward factories and mining sites, their heads down and shoulders bent. Jin-Ho Lee walked among them, carrying a tablet and checking names on his list. To anyone watching, he looked like just another defeated human doing his job. The Velthari had made him a labor coordinator, responsible for organizing work teams and moving humans between different projects. Batch 47, ready for transport to Kepler Station. Jin-Ho reported to the Velthari overseer, a creature named Velthok. The alien barely looked up from his own device. Good. The mining operation there needs more workers. Make sure they understand the safety protocols, Velthok said in his mechanical voice. Jin-Ho nodded and walked away. He had learned to act tired and defeated around the aliens. It was not hard to do. Most humans really were tired and defeated. But Jin-Ho was different. He remembered who he used to be before the invasion. Colonel Jin-Ho Lee, one of Earth's best military strategists. Now he moved humans around the galaxy like pieces on a chessboard. But the Velthari did not know they were pieces in a much larger game. Nayun Choi crawled through the maintenance tunnel, beneath the Velthari command center in New Tokyo. Her job was to keep their machines running smoothly. The aliens thought humans were good with basic repairs because they had small, quick fingers and could fit into tight spaces. They had no idea how good Na'an really was with machines. Before the invasion, she had been one of Earth's top engineers, designing spacecraft engines and computer systems. Now she spent her days deep inside Velthari technology, learning how everything worked. The aliens used quantum processors that could think faster than any human computer. Their power systems drew energy from space itself. Their weapons could destroy mountains with a single shot. It was all incredibly advanced. It was also incredibly poorly protected against someone who knew what to look for. Nayun found the access panel she was searching for and opened it carefully. Inside were the data pathways that controlled communications for the entire sector. She pulled out a small device no bigger than her thumb and connected it to the system. The device looked like a simple human battery, the kind used in old flashlights, but Na'un had built it herself using parts from broken Velthari equipment. It would copy every message that passed through this junction and send the information to a hidden receiver. The aliens would never find it, because they thought humans were too stupid to understand their technology 2 levels above. Dongmin Yu sat at his workstation in the communications center. His job was to coordinate data flows between different Velthari installations across the galaxy. Messages about supply shipments, personnel transfers, military movements, all of it passed through his station. The Velthari trusted him because he had worked there for 2 years without causing any problems. He was quiet, efficient, and never asked questions about information that was not his business. They did not know that Dongmin remembered every piece of data he saw. Before the invasion, he had been a communications specialist in the Korean military, trained to gather and analyze intelligence. His mind was like a computer that never forgot anything. Every day he learned more about how the Velthari Empire worked, which worlds had the most troops, which supply lines were most important, which commanders were smart and which ones were lazy. All of this information went into reports that he wrote in a code only other humans would understand. The reports looked like maintenance schedules and worker assignments, but they were actually detailed intelligence about Velthari weaknesses. On distant worlds across the galaxy, other humans received these reports and added their own information. Slowly, piece by piece, humanity was building a complete picture of their conquerors. Meanwhile, So-Young Kim sat in her office in the Human Affairs building, reading through requests and complaints from Velthari administrators. Her official job was to help solve problems between humans and aliens. When human workers were too slow, she was supposed to motivate them. When aliens had questions about human behavior, she was supposed to explain. It was humiliating work for someone who had once been Earth's chief diplomat, but it kept her close to important information and gave her access to Velthari leaders. The humans at mining Station 7 are not meeting their quotas, complained Administrator Zelnoth during their weekly meeting. They claim the equipment is malfunctioning, but our technicians say everything is working properly. I will investigate personally, So-Young promised. Perhaps there is a misunderstanding about the operating procedures. What she did not tell Zelnoth was that the equipment really was malfunctioning. Nayun had modified the mining robots to work 20% slower than their maximum capacity. It was a small change, barely noticeable, but it added up over time. The Velthari were losing millions of credits in productivity across dozens of mining operations, and they had no idea why. There is another matter, Zelnoth continued. Some of our patrol ships have reported strange readings near human work sites. Electromagnetic signatures that do not match our equipment specifications. So Young nodded thoughtfully. Human devices use different frequencies than Velthari technology. Perhaps some workers are using unauthorized communication equipment to stay in contact with family members. That would be a violation of regulations. I will issue a reminder about proper protocols, So Young said. I am sure it is nothing serious. But she knew exactly what those electromagnetic signatures were. Humans across the galaxy were building hidden communication networks using modified Velthari equipment. The signals were weak and disguised to look like background radiation, but they allowed human workers on different worlds to stay in contact. The network was growing larger every day. What had started as a few secret messages between Earth and the nearest colonies now connected human populations across 17 star systems. After her meeting with Zelnoth, So Young returned to her apartment in the human residential district. It was small and simple, with basic furniture and no luxuries. The Velthari wanted humans to be comfortable enough to work efficiently, but not comfortable enough to feel free. She made herself dinner and sat by the window looking out at the city lights. To anyone watching, she looked like a tired bureaucrat finishing another day of routine work. But inside her drawer was a communication device disguised as a medical scanner. Every night she used it to send coded messages to human leaders across the galaxy. Status reports, new intelligence, strategic updates. The messages all said the same basic thing. Stay ready. Stay patient. The plan is working. Because there was a plan. There had always been a plan. From the very moment she had walked onto that alien shuttle 3 years ago, the Velthari thought they had conquered humanity through superior firepower. They thought humans had surrendered because they were weak and frightened. They were wrong about both things. Humans had surrendered because it was the smart thing to do. Fighting would have meant extinction. Surrendering meant survival, and survival meant opportunity. For 3 years, humans had been scattered across the galaxy, working in Velthari facilities, learning their technology, studying their weaknesses. The aliens saw it as punishment and exploitation. Humans saw it as the best intelligence-gathering operation in history. Every human worker was a spy. Every human engineer was a saboteur. Every human administrator was gathering information for the day when humanity would be ready to act. The Velthari had given humans access to their entire empire. They had taught humans how their technology worked. They had shown humans exactly where their important facilities were located and how they were defended. Most importantly, they had become comfortable and careless. They had reduced their military presence on Earth and spread their forces thin across too many worlds. They thought humans were beaten and harmless. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. So Young finished her dinner and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring another day of pretending to be defeated, another day of gathering intelligence, another day of preparing for the moment when humanity would strike back. The Velthari thought they had won the war 3 years ago, but the war had never really ended. It had just moved into a new phase, one where patience and planning mattered more than weapons and ships. And humans were very good at being patient when they needed to be. Commander Velthok was studying the patrol reports when he noticed the pattern. 3 ships had gone missing in the past month, all near human work sites. The official reports blamed equipment failures and navigation errors, but something felt wrong. The first ship had disappeared near the mining operation on Kepler 442b. The second vanished while investigating electromagnetic anomalies around a human farming colony. The third had been patrolling near a construction site where humans were building new Velthari facilities. Velthok had been a military commander for 40 years. He had fought in 7 wars and conquered 4 different species for the Empire. He knew the difference between coincidence and enemy action. Bring me the detailed records, he ordered his assistant. I want to see everything about these missing ships. Crew assignments, flight paths, last communications. The data told a disturbing story. All 3 ships had reported unusual readings before they disappeared. Strange energy signatures that did not match any known Velthari technology. The readings had been dismissed as interference from human equipment, but now Velthok was not so sure. He decided to investigate personally. The mining station on Kepler 4482b looked normal when Velthok arrived. Human workers moved rocks and operated drilling equipment under the supervision of Velthari overseers. Everything seemed routine and peaceful, but Velthok noticed details that others had missed. The humans moved with too much coordination, their work patterns were too efficient, and their eyes held something that defeated species were not supposed to have: confidence. "Show me where the patrol ship was last detected," he ordered the station commander. They flew to the coordinates in a small scout vessel. The area was empty space with no debris or signs of battle, but Velthok's instruments picked up faint traces of exotic radiation, the kind produced by advanced weapon systems. "Commander," his pilot said nervously, "we are being scanned by something. Multiple sources, very sophisticated." Before Velthok could respond, space around them suddenly filled with ships. They appeared from nowhere, as if they had been invisible moments before. But these were not Velthari vessels. They were sleek, dark craft that looked like they had been built from Velthari technology, but redesigned by someone else. "This is impossible," the pilot whispered. "Humans do not have ships like this." The largest of the strange vessels moved closer and opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on their screen was human, but not the face of a defeated slave. This human wore a military uniform and spoke with the authority of a commanding officer. "Commander Velthok," the human said, "I am Jin-Ho Lee. We need to talk." Velthok stared at the screen in shock. He knew that name. Jin-Ho Lee was supposed to be a labor coordinator, a broken human who organized work teams and followed orders without question. "You are under arrest for unauthorized military activity," Velthok managed to say. Jin-Ho smiled. "I am afraid that is not how this is going to work. Please prepare your ship for boarding. We have much to discuss." The next few hours changed everything Velthok thought he knew about humans. He was taken aboard the human ship, which was clearly built using modified Velthari technology. But the modifications were not crude human attempts at copying alien designs. They were improvements. The ship was faster, more efficient, and better armed than comparable Velthari vessels. "How is this possible?" Velthok demanded as Jin-Ho led him through corridors filled with human crew members working at advanced control stations. "Your people made a mistake," Jin-Ho explained calmly. "You assumed that because we surrendered, we had given up. You thought that because we seemed defeated, we were actually defeated." They entered a command center where multiple screens showed real-time data from across the galaxy. Velthok saw displays tracking Velthari ship movements, supply convoys, and military installations. It was intelligence gathering on a massive scale. "3 years ago, you scattered humans across your empire to work in your facilities," Jin-Ho continued. "You thought you were punishing us. Actually, you were giving us the greatest opportunity in human history." Nayun Choi appeared on one of the screens, broadcasting from a Velthari research facility. But she was not crawling through maintenance tunnels anymore. She was standing in the main laboratory, surrounded by human technicians working at Velthari computers. "Every human you assigned to maintain your technology was actually studying it," she reported. "We now understand your power systems, your weapons, your defensive shields. More importantly, we know how to disable them." Another screen showed Dongmin, you in what looked like a Velthari command center, but the alien overseers were nowhere to be seen, and humans were operating all the control stations. "Your communication networks have been compromised for 18 months, Dongmin explained. "Every message, every order, every strategic plan has been copied and analyzed. We know where all your ships are. We know where all your important facilities are located. We know which commanders are competent and which ones are not." Velthok felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "The missing patrol ships?" The crews were given a choice, Jinho said. Join us willingly or be held as prisoners until this is over. Most of them chose to join us once we showed them what we had learned about the Empire. That is impossible. Velthari loyalty is absolute. Jinho activated another screen. It showed a group of Velthari officers working alongside humans in what appeared to be a shared command center. They wore modified uniforms that combined Velthari rank insignia with human military symbols. Loyalty to what? Jinho asked. To an emperor who starts wars for profit? To a system that treats most Velthari as barely better than slaves? Your people are not so different from humans. When shown a better way, many of them are willing to change sides. The screens around the room suddenly filled with images from across the galaxy. Human work sites were simultaneously throwing off their disguises and revealing themselves to be military bases. Velthari facilities were being taken over by their own human workers. Ships were being captured or disabled by crews that included converted Velthari officers. This is happening everywhere, Jinho said quietly. Every world where you placed human workers. Every facility where you thought we were harmlessly maintaining your equipment. Every supply line that we have been quietly mapping for 3 years. Velthok watched in horror as decades of Velthari expansion were undone in a matter of hours. Military bases went offline. Communication networks collapsed. Entire star systems stopped responding to Central Command. How many of our people have you turned? He asked. Enough, Jinho replied. Your empire was built on fear and domination, but fear only works when people believe you are stronger than they are. Once they see that you can be defeated, everything changes. The most shocking moment came when So Young Kim appeared on the main screen. But she was not in her small office in the Human Affairs building. She was standing in Emperor Kethmoran's throne room, surrounded by human soldiers and Velthari defectors. Commander Velthok, she said, I believe you are beginning to understand the situation. The Velthari Empire as you knew it no longer exists. What happens next depends on choices that your people make in the coming hours. Velthok stared at the screen trying to process what he was seeing. You planned this from the beginning. From the moment we surrendered, So Young confirmed, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We learned long ago that sometimes the best way to win is to let your enemy think they have already won. But your people seemed genuinely defeated. The suffering, the fear, the broken spirits. Some of that was real, Jinho admitted. It is hard to pretend to be slaves even when you know it is temporary. But humans are good at enduring hardship when they believe it serves a greater purpose. On the screens, the reports continued to come in. Velthari commanders across the galaxy were finding themselves cut off from Central Command. Their own ships turned against them, their trusted human workers revealed as enemy agents. What do you want? Velthok asked. What we have always wanted, So Young replied from the throne room. Freedom for our people and an end to the Empire's expansion. But we are not conquerors like you. We are offering Velthari who lay down their weapons a chance to be part of something better. Velthok looked around the command center, seeing humans and Velthari working together with an efficiency that the old Empire had never achieved. Despite himself, he was impressed. And if we refuse? Jinho's expression became serious. Then you will discover that humans can be just as ruthless as Velthari when we need to be. The difference is that we prefer not to be. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone had imagined possible. 3 years of careful preparation had created a network that spanned the galaxy. When the signal was given, everything happened at once. The Velthari Empire was falling, not to superior firepower, but to superior planning, and the simple truth that no empire could survive when half its own people turned against it. And at the center of it all was the quiet Diplomat, who had walked onto an alien shuttle 3 years ago and whispered words that would change the galaxy forever. Emperor Kethmoran stood in his throne room, watching his empire collapse on the giant displays that surrounded him. Red warning lights flashed as system after system went offline. His military advisors shouted conflicting reports and desperate suggestions, but their voices seemed to come from very far away. Your Majesty, Admiral Zekthor said urgently, we must evacuate immediately. The human rebels have taken control of the orbital defense platforms. They could target the palace at any moment. The Emperor did not respond. He was staring at the main screen, which showed a complete map of Velthari space. Red zones marked areas where human forces had taken control. Yellow zones showed regions where fighting was still happening. Green zones, representing areas still loyal to the Empire, were shrinking by the hour. In 3 years, he had gone from the conqueror of 18 worlds to the ruler of perhaps 3 or 4 star systems, and even those were not secure. "How did we not see this coming?" he whispered. "Your Majesty, we need to make a decision now," Admiral Zekthor insisted. "Our fastest ships are ready. We can reach the emergency command center in the Outer Rim." Before the Emperor could answer, the throne room doors opened. Velthari guards entered, but they were escorted by human soldiers. Behind them walked So-Young Kim, no longer dressed as a humble bureaucrat. She wore a simple but elegant uniform that somehow made her look more dangerous than any weapon. "That will not be necessary, Admiral," she said calmly. "His Majesty and I have important matters to discuss." Admiral Zekthor reached for his weapon, but found that his own guards were pointing their rifles at him instead of at the humans. His face showed complete confusion and betrayal. "I am sorry, Admiral," said Captain Velkron, the head of the Emperor's personal guard, "but we have seen what happens to empires that refuse to change with the times." So-Young walked across the throne room floor, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Around her, the displays continued to show the Empire's collapse in real time. "You seem surprised, Your Majesty," she observed. "Did you really think this would last forever?" Emperor Kethmoran finally found his voice. "My empire has stood for 800 years. We have conquered 17 species. No one has ever successfully rebelled against Velthari rule." "That is true," So-Young agreed, "but you never conquered humans before." On the screens around them, new reports were coming in. Tae-Hyung-Oh appeared from the bridge of a captured Velthari battleship, reporting that the Third Fleet had surrendered after half its officers switched sides. Mi-Jin Park broadcast from a former prison world, announcing that the human population had not only freed themselves, but convinced most of the Velthari guards to join them. "Impossible," the Emperor breathed. "Velthari do not betray their own kind." "They do when they realize their own kind have been betraying them for centuries," So-Young replied. "Your empire was built on lies, Your Majesty. The lie that Velthari were superior to other species. The lie that conquest brought peace and prosperity. The lie that the empire served all its people equally." She gestured to Captain Velkron. "Ask your own guards what they think about the system that kept them as soldiers while nobles lived in luxury. Ask your workers what they think about the quotas that enriched the elite while they struggled to survive." Emperor Kethmoran looked around the throne room and realized that every Velthari present was watching him with expressions that ranged from pity to open hostility. These were people who had served him faithfully for years, but their loyalty had clearly reached its limits. "You turned them against me." "We showed them an alternative," So-Young corrected. 3 years ago, when your ships appeared over Earth, you made a choice. You could have tried to communicate, to trade, to find peaceful ways for our species to coexist. Instead, you chose conquest. The Emperor's black eyes flashed with anger. "We are the superior species. It is our right to rule over lesser beings." "Superior in what way?" So-Young asked. "Your technology? We learned to use it better than you do in less than 3 years. Your military strategy? We defeated your entire empire using principles humans developed thousands of years ago. Your intelligence? You scattered your greatest enemies across your own territory and gave them access to all your secrets." She walked closer to the throne, and the Emperor found himself leaning back despite his efforts to appear strong. "The truth is, Your Majesty, the only thing you were ever superior at was convincing yourselves that you deserved to rule over others. But superiority is not about what you deserve. It is about what you can accomplish." More reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Dongmin Yu announced that the central communication hub had been completely secured, cutting off all remaining Imperial forces from each other. Na Yun Choi reported that human engineering teams had taken control of the Empire's main manufacturing centers and were already converting them to peaceful purposes. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked finally. "I want to end this conversation the same way we started it 3 years ago," So-Young replied, "with you learning something about how the galaxy really works." She activated a communication device, and suddenly, the throne room filled with voices from across space. Human leaders, Velthari defectors, representatives of other species that had been conquered by the Empire, all of them reporting the same thing: victory, liberation, the end of imperial rule. But among them was a voice that made the Emperor's expression change from anger to shock. It was Admiral Hyunwoo Park, speaking from what looked like a military command center. "Admiral Park reporting, ma'am. Earth Defense Forces are fully operational and ready for Phase 2 of the liberation." "Earth Defense Forces?" the Emperor stammered. "We destroyed your military 3 years ago." So Young smiled for the first time since entering the throne room. "You destroyed our visible military. Did you really think Earth's greatest strategist would expose all our capabilities in the first battle?" The main screen shifted to show images from Earth. Underground facilities that had been hidden for years were opening up. Massive ships rose from concealed bases. Weapon systems that had never appeared on any Velthari scan powered up and aimed at the sky. "The battle you won 3 years ago was fought by our regular military," Admiral Park explained from the screen. "Our best commanders, our most advanced technology, our most elite forces were hidden away, waiting for the right moment to strike." Emperor Kethmaran stared at the displays in growing horror. Everything he thought he knew about the conquest of Earth had been wrong. The humans had not been defeated. They had been playing a game so complex that he was only now beginning to understand it. "You let us win," he whispered. "We let you think you won," So Young corrected. "There is a very important difference." She walked to the massive window that looked out over the imperial capital. Below, Velthari citizens were emerging from their homes to watch human and Velthari ships flying together in formation. There was no panic, no fighting. The transition of power was happening peacefully because both sides wanted it to happen. "Your Majesty," she said without turning around. 3 years ago, you asked me to surrender unconditionally. Now I am going to offer you the same choice you gave humanity." The Emperor closed his eyes, knowing what was coming. "You can surrender unconditionally and accept integration into a new galactic government based on cooperation instead of domination. Your people will be treated fairly and given the chance to contribute to something better than an empire." She turned back to face him, and her expression was not cruel or triumphant. It was almost sad. "Or you can refuse and discover what happens when humans decide to fight a war the way Velthari fight wars. Total conquest, complete destruction of enemy forces, no mercy for those who resist." The throne room was completely silent except for the quiet hum of the displays showing the Empire's fall. "Before you answer," So Young said quietly, "let me tell you something that might help you understand how you lost a war you thought you had already won." She walked back to stand directly in front of the throne. "There is a rule that every human commander learns, a principle so basic that we teach it to children in school. It guided every decision we made from the moment your ships appeared over Earth." Emperor Kethmaran leaned forward despite himself, desperate to understand how his mighty empire had been brought down by a species he had considered primitive. So Young leaned close and whispered 2 words that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Rule number 1. The morning sky above Seoul turned black as midnight. Giant ships blocked out the sun, casting shadows across the entire city. People stopped walking on the streets and looked up in fear. The ships were made of some kind of crystal that sparkled even in the darkness they created. So Young Kim stood on the roof of the government building, watching the alien fleet through her binoculars. She had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The ships were bigger than anything humans had ever built. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Ma'am, we need to get you to the bunker," said her assistant, tugging at her arm. But So Young could not look away from the sky. She counted the ships until she lost track. This was not a visit. This was an invasion. Admiral Hyunwoo Park was already in the command center when So Young arrived. His face was grim as he stared at the screen showing radar data. Red dots filled every monitor representing enemy ships surrounding Earth. "How many?" So Young asked. "Too many," Hyunwoo replied without looking at her.
"Our satellites picked them up 3 hours ago."
They appeared out of nowhere like they just stepped through space itself. The first message came at noon. It appeared on every screen, every phone, every device on Earth at the same time. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect English. "People of Earth, I am Emperor Kethmoran of the Velthari Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 1 day to surrender completely, or we will destroy every city on your planet." The message repeated in every human language. Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, Korean. The aliens had studied Earth well before they came. President Williams called an emergency meeting. World leaders gathered through video calls, their faces pale with fear. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender immediately. They argued for hours while the alien ships waited silently above. So Young listened to the debates, but her mind was working on something else. She had studied every first contact scenario Earth's scientists had ever imagined. None of them looked like this. The aliens had not come to talk or trade. They had come to conquer. "We have to fight," declared General Martinez from the American military. "We cannot just give up our freedom." "With what?" asked Prime Minister Chen from China. "Look at those ships. Our best weapons are like toys compared to their technology." Admiral Hyunwoo stood up slowly. "I have been studying their formation for the past 6 hours. They have positioned their ships over every major city, every military base, every important target we have. They know exactly where to hit us." "How is that possible?" President Williams asked. "They have been watching us for a long time," So Young said quietly. "This is not a random attack. They planned this invasion very carefully. The first demonstration of alien power came at sunset. A small ship detached from the main fleet and flew toward the Sahara Desert. It fired a single beam of light that lasted only 3 seconds. When the light faded, there was a glass crater 20 miles wide where sand used to be. The message came again. "You have 18 hours remaining." That night, Earth's military leaders worked frantically to prepare defenses. Fighter jets took off from bases around the world. Navy ships moved into position. Missile systems powered up and aimed at the sky. So Young did not sleep. She walked through the empty halls of the government building, thinking about options. Every plan she considered ended the same way. Humans would die by the millions, and Earth would still lose. She thought about her daughter, Yujin, who was studying at university in Busan. She thought about her elderly parents in their small house in the countryside. She thought about the 8 billion people on Earth who were about to face something no human had ever faced before. At dawn, the aliens attacked. They did not target cities or people first. They went after the military. Laser beams from space destroyed aircraft carriers in seconds. Fighter jets exploded before they could fire a single shot. Missile bases vanished in flashes of light. Admiral Hyunwoo tried to coordinate the defense from his bunker, but it was hopeless. "We lost 60% of our air force in the first 10 minutes, he reported to the emergency council. "Our missiles cannot reach their ships. They are too high and too well protected." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Earth's military was completely destroyed. The aliens had not even needed to send down ground troops. They had won the war without landing a single soldier. President Williams was ready to announce total surrender when So Young made her request. "Let me talk to them," she said. "There are laws in space just like there are laws on Earth. Even conquerors have to follow some rules." "What rules?" Admiral Hyunwoo asked. "They just destroyed our entire military." "Ancient laws," So Young explained. "If a species has space travel, they must know about the galactic codes. Rules about war, about surrender, about what happens to defeated peoples." She was gambling with the lives of 8 billion people, but it was the only chance she could see. The response from Emperor Kethmoran came quickly. He would meet with Earth's representative, but only to discuss terms of surrender. Nothing else would be negotiated. So Young put on her best diplomatic uniform and walked to the landing pad where an alien shuttle waited. The craft was beautiful and terrifying, made of the same crystal material as the larger ships. Inside, she met Emperor Kethmoran for the first time. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal. His eyes were completely black, showing no emotion at all. "You wish to surrender your species to the Velthari Empire," he said. "It was not a question." "I wish to discuss terms," So Young replied carefully. The Emperor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You have no power to negotiate. Your military is destroyed. Your leaders hide in bunkers. Your people weep in their homes." "That is true," So Young admitted. "But even in defeat, we have rights under galactic law." This seemed to surprise him. "You know of the codes?" "I know that conquered species can choose servitude over extinction." Emperor Kethmoran studied her for a long moment. "Interesting. Your species may be more useful than I first thought." "Very well. Earth will become the 18th world of the Velthari Empire. Your people will serve us, and in return they will live." "We accept," So Young said. though the words felt like poison in her mouth. The Emperor smiled, showing teeth like sharp diamonds. Excellent. You have given me the greatest victory in Velthari history. Earth is ours. As So Young returned to the surface, she looked up at the alien ships one more time. The Emperor thought he had won. He thought humanity was defeated. He was wrong about many things. But So Young kept those thoughts to herself. For now it was enough that her people would survive. Everything else could wait. Emperor Keth Morin stared at So Young Kim with complete confusion. Rule number 1? What does that mean? So Young stepped back and looked around the throne room, taking in the displays showing the collapse of an empire. The Velthari guards who now served human commanders. The admiral who waited desperately for orders that would never come. Rule number 1, she began, is something every human learns but no other species in the galaxy seems to understand. It is the reason we survived when you should have destroyed us. It is the reason we won when you should have kept us beaten. She walked to the central display and touched the controls. The screen changed to show Earth as it had been 3 years ago, burning under Velthari attack. Your species thinks in terms of immediate victory, she continued. You see an enemy, you attack with overwhelming force, you win quickly, you move on to the next target. It has worked for 800 years against every species you have encountered. The display shifted to show the aftermath of Earth's surrender, humans being loaded onto transport ships, cities being rebuilt under Velthari supervision, the beginning of what looked like a successful occupation. But humans think differently. We learned a long time ago that there are 2 kinds of wars. Wars you can win today, and wars you can win forever. Emperor Keth Moran was listening intently now, his confusion beginning to change into a terrible understanding. Rule number 1, So Young said clearly, is this. Never fight a war you can win today if you can win the entire conflict tomorrow. She touched the controls again, and the screen began showing a timeline of the past 3 years. Not the official Velthari records of a successful occupation, but the hidden truth of human preparation and infiltration. From the moment I walked onto your shuttle to discuss surrender, we were already planning for this day, not planning to resist your occupation, but planning to make your occupation the weapon that would destroy your empire. The timeline showed human workers being scattered across Velthari space, learning alien technology, building secret networks, slowly converting Velthari citizens to their cause. You gave us something no invading army should ever give their enemies, So Young explained. You gave us access to your entire civilization. You put human workers in your most sensitive facilities. You let human engineers study your most advanced technology. You allowed human coordinators to learn the details of your supply lines and military deployments. Admiral Zekthor, who had been listening in stunned silence, finally spoke up. But you were defeated. Your people were genuinely suffering. We saw the despair, the broken spirits, So Young nodded sadly. That part was real. It is not easy to pretend to be slaves, even when you know it serves a greater purpose. Many humans suffered genuine depression and hopelessness during those 3 years. But they endured it because they understood rule number 1. She gestured to the displays around them, which now showed human and Velthari working together across the galaxy. We accepted temporary defeat in order to achieve permanent victory. We endured 3 years of slavery in order to free not just ourselves, but every species your empire had conquered, including the Velthari people themselves. The main screen changed to show Admiral Hyunwoo Park, standing in what was clearly a highly advanced command center hidden deep underground on Earth. Your Majesty, Admiral Park said, addressing the Emperor directly, what you destroyed 3 years ago was our frontline military. Our public defenses, our visible weapons, our regular forces, but Earth's real military has been preparing for this moment since the day we first detected your ships approaching our solar system. The display expanded to show massive underground complexes, advanced shipyards, weapon systems that made Velthari technology look primitive by comparison. The battle we fought in orbit was a deception, Admiral Park continued. We could have made it much more costly for you, but that would have alerted you to our true capabilities. Instead, we gave you exactly the kind of victory you expected, and you never looked deeper. Emperor Keth Moran was beginning to understand the true scope of what had happened to his empire. You let us scatter your people across our territory because you wanted them there. Every human worker was a spy, So Young confirmed. Every human engineer was gathering intelligence. Every human coordinator was mapping your weaknesses. and every human administrator was building the network that would bring down your empire when the time was right. Na-Yun Choi appeared on one of the smaller screens, broadcasting from a Velthari research facility that was now completely under human control. "We did not just learn how to use your technology," she reported. "We learned how to improve it. The weapon systems we built using modified Velthari designs are 30% more efficient than your originals. Our ships are faster. Our communications are more secure. Our defenses are stronger." Another screen showed Jin Ho Lee standing in what had once been a Velthari military command center. "Your empire was built on the assumption that superior technology equals superior civilization," he said. "But technology is just tools. What matters is how intelligently you use those tools." The displays around the throne room now showed a complete picture of the galaxy under new management. Former Velthari worlds were governed by councils that included both humans and Velthari. Military fleets flew under unified command structures that promoted officers based on competence rather than species. Trade networks that had once served only the imperial elite now benefited entire populations. "This is impossible," Emperor Kethmoran protested weakly. "You cannot change the nature of galactic civilization in a matter of hours." "We did not change it in hours," So Young replied. "We changed it over 3 years. One person at a time, one facility at a time, one world at a time. When we finally revealed what we had built, the change was already complete." Commander Velthok appeared on the communication system, broadcasting from Jin Ho Lee's command ship. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have seen how this new system works. Humans and Velthari serving together as equals, making decisions based on logic and cooperation rather than fear and domination. It is better than what we had before." The Emperor looked around the throne room one more time, seeing the faces of people who had served him faithfully, but now clearly supported the changes happening around them. "What happens to me?" he asked quietly. "That depends on you," So Young replied. "You can accept that your empire is finished and help us build something better. Your knowledge and experience could be valuable in creating a government that serves all species equally." She paused, letting him absorb the possibility. "Or you can refuse to accept reality and spend the rest of your life as a prisoner, watching the galaxy become more peaceful and prosperous without you." For a long moment, the throne room was completely silent. Then slowly, Emperor Kethmoran stood up from his throne and walked down the steps to stand in front of So Young Kim. "I do not understand your rule number 1, he said. "How do you teach an entire species to accept temporary defeat for future victory? How do you convince billions of people to endure suffering when they could fight back immediately?" So Young smiled, and for the first time it was a warm, genuine expression. "You teach them that some things are more important than individual pride or immediate satisfaction. You teach them that true strength comes from working together toward goals that benefit everyone. You teach them that patience and planning can accomplish things that weapons and force cannot." She looked around the throne room, taking in the displays showing peace spreading across the galaxy. "Most importantly, you teach them that the best victories are the ones where everybody wins something, and nobody has to lose everything." The Emperor nodded slowly. "I think I am beginning to understand." "Good," So Young said. "Because we have a lot of work to do. Building a galactic government based on cooperation instead of conquest will not be easy. We will need people who understand how the old system worked and can help design something better." As if summoned by her words, representatives of dozens of species began appearing on the communication screens. Humans, Velthari, and others all working together to coordinate the transition to a new era. The last image that appeared was of Earth itself, no longer burning or occupied, but shining peacefully in space. Cities rebuilt with combined human and Velthari technology. Ships launching not for conquest but for exploration and trade. "Rule number 1, Emperor Kethmoran said thoughtfully. "Never fight a war you can win today if you can win the entire conflict tomorrow." "Now you are learning," So Young replied. "Welcome to tomorrow, Your Majesty. We have been waiting for you to arrive." And in that moment, as a former emperor took his first steps toward becoming a citizen of a free galaxy, the greatest war in galactic history finally came to an end, not with destruction and conquest, but with patience, planning, and the understanding that the best victories are the ones that create peace instead of just changing who holds the weapons. The humans had taught the galaxy rule number 1, and the galaxy would never be the same.